Okay. Hi, guys.
Hi. Last time we talked about, well, you had the library edition of the Horizon Report, and I had K-12. And this week I have K-12 again, but instead of talking about the challenges that are facing implementation, this week it focused on the things that are kind of helping implementation along in K-12 education, which I was actually kind of glad to read, because if you remember last time we talked, I was like really frustrated with how nobody's doing any of these cool things. Well, they kind of addressed that this week, and I was happy to see that, because now I'm just hopeful and not so much frustrated. But just kind of like the other articles or other parts of the same article, they broke it down into a timeline, like long-term vision and short-term vision and mid-range or whatever. And I think that was the part that really put it into perspective for me, because the short-term things that they talked about were like blended learning and STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And those are the short-term things. And those are kind of things that we're already doing, at least on my campus, maybe not across my district, but on my campus. I'm like, okay, all right, so we're on the right track. We're meeting our short-term goals right now.
Reassuring.
Exactly. It made me feel a lot better. And so then the idea was that maybe three or 4 years down the line, then we should be in like the collaborative learning and the consumers, not creators phase. Because I was thinking like it's going to be years before we're teaching kids how to code.
Yeah.
To learn math, but I guess that's kind of the point. So, and then the long-term things addressed like totally rethinking how schools work, where we don't have 45-minute periods that divide different subjects anymore. It's kind of like an 8-hour collective educational experience, which that's awesome. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
They called what we have now like overly structured, and I really agree with that. If we're talking about shifting into an education system where students are driving the learning, you can't have them on like a very controlling like layout even of their day. That would be too controlling for that situation. So
what do you think that does to like lesson planning? Can you still have some sort of structure, you think?
I think I think that teachers right now we're very used to working in our pods. Like I only collaborate with math people and the science department, we want nothing to do with them. But I think that the more we get into this, we'll see like teachers kind of just as experts in their area, and they're working as an instructional unit together to provide some sort of experience for the student. So if a student needs assistance in a math-related task, they come to their math teacher and then they continue working. Or if they need help on a science thing, they see a science teacher instead of only having math at one time and science separate.
It reminds me kind of Montessori-ish.
I'm not really familiar with that, but it's like a whole foods approach to
cool.
education. It does sound cool. One thing, it has some research basis, but one thing that they talked about was how pediatricians recommend that high school students start school after 8:30 in the morning. And I was like, I don't even care. I'm like, let's do that now. 7:15 is too early for me. Like 8:30.
That's early.
7:15 is too early. I'm sorry for anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it for my end.
Okay, cool. Well, this time I switched around and I read the 2016 Horizon reports on museums.
Cool.
And so the section that I read kind of discussed the wicked, solvable, and difficult challenges that face museums. Really looking at all of them, it kind of comes down to how do they keep museums relevant. And the biggest challenge to that, I think, was funding. In every single challenge that was listed, it came down to, governments aren't giving them enough funding anymore. So that's a big challenge for them. One of the other things that I noticed was one of the solutions they had to their challenges of, keeping them relevant and also getting people into museums is they can kind of focus their efforts on trying to get people with different disabilities into museums. So they were highlighting a lot of different things that they could do. So they can use technology to train their staff who probably haven't been exposed to a number of people with disabilities and try and teach them how to engage properly. Some of the other things were creating virtual reality, so it would allow maybe bedbound people to virtually explore museums. And there's already technology out there, so you can virtually explore, I think, 8 museums in the US, which is really neat.
That is really cool. That reminds me of that thing I was talking about last time, where the student is homebound, but it's a Vigo robot, and it walks around with a student at school to all the classes and allows the homebound student to interact. I think that would be cool if you had like a robot like that walked around with a docent or someone.
Yeah.
And the person could control which parts of the museum. I think that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I like that they're kind of focusing on this underprivileged population. I think it's a really good place for them to start. Mm-hmm. One of the other cool things that they talked about, it's not like a major part of the report, but I thought was really awesome, was they're using 3D printing to print out photographs taken by blind people so that they can actually experience the.
Wow.
So I thought that was really cool.
Wow, that is really cool.
Yeah, it's like stuff you'd never think about.
I just saw, it was on Facebook. It was just an article about some sunglasses that someone had created that separated the light so that colorblind people could experience red and green.
Yeah.
And just like watching them for the first time look at a red flower, like, and saying, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Aww. I think that's really special. And if you can do that for blind people to experience art that way, that's amazing.
Yeah. So
I was going to ask you, like, how do you think that museums can compete with, like, me being able to Google whatever I want to know, or like, they have to create some kind of experience for people.
Exactly.
They can't get on the internet.
Yeah, that's one of their major problems, was they're trying to keep up with the new technology that's coming out, and it seems like as soon as they're able to actually have the funds to train their staffs on this technology, something new comes out.
Right.
So it's like they're struggling to keep up with all of that.
I think libraries too probably have the same issue.
Yeah, it's how to keep them relevant and how to keep people to keep coming back.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The same, I think, can be said about education. We've talked about that before, staying competitive within the global education, all of that. You have to have people who are open-minded about it. You know, there are teachers, there are people who work in museums who say, I've done this for the last 20 years the same way, and it seems to have worked for me. Well, that doesn't really apply anymore, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's what's best for the consumer or for the student or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I think the biggest solution will be like trying to find a balance and trying to necessarily like win those people over, because I think especially in museums, it's definitely an older crowd. I've heard some people who've tried to get jobs at like the Houston Museum of Natural Science, and it's basically like you don't get a job until someone retires or goes to different.
Right.
So I guess it will just try and be, basically they'll get to that point where they're like, okay, I need to change or else we're going to fail.
Right, become obsolete.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, that wraps it up for another interesting Horizon report. And we only have one more, so.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll talk to you next time then.
All right, see you later.
Bye.